The evening was quiet, only the sound of the river breaking the silence. A human named Daniel walked slowly along the muddy path, his boots wet from the soft ground. He often came here after work, just to clear his head. But tonight, something felt different. The air was heavy, the wind too still, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Then he heard it, a cry, faint but sharp, carried by the rushing water. At first he thought it was a wounded animal, maybe a bird caught in the reeds. But the sound was too soft, too fragile, almost. Like the voice of a child, Daniel froze, his heart beating fast. He looked around, trying to find where it came from. The cry came again, louder this time. It pulled him closer to the riverbank, where the water moved faster between sharp stones. He bent down, pushing the tall grass aside, and then his eyes widened. There, tangled between broken branches and weeds, lay something small and glowing faintly under the moonlight. It was a baby, not human, but not like any creature Daniel had ever seen before. Its skin was pale, with a soft blue shimmer, almost like starlight resting on water. Tiny ridges ran across its forehead, and its eyes, large and bright, were filled with tears. The baby kicked weakly, its small hands clinging to the branches as if begging for help. Daniel's breath caught. For a moment, he stood frozen, unsure if this was real or a trick of his tired mind. But the baby cried again, a sound of pure fear and helplessness. Without thinking, Daniel reached into the cold water. He pulled the small body free, careful not to hurt it. The baby was shivering, its chest rising fast, its breath uneven. Daniel quickly wrapped it inside his coat, holding it close to his warmth. "What are you?" he whispered softly. The baby blinked, its glowing eyes staring straight into his. For a strange moment, Daniel felt like the baby understood him. He shook his head, pushing away the thought. Whatever this child was, it needed help, and he was the only one here to give it. He looked up and down the river, hoping to see someone, anyone, who might have lost this child. But the banks were empty, the forest silent. It was as if the baby had been left here alone, thrown away by hands too cruel to care. Daniel's jaw tightened, anger rising inside him. Who could abandon something so small, so helpless? He started walking back toward his cabin. The baby's small body pressed against his chest. Each step felt heavier, as though unseen eyes were watching him from the shadows of the trees. The forest was alive with whispers, branches swaying though the wind was gone. Daniel quickened his pace, not daring to look back. When he reached his door, he carefully laid the baby on his old wooden table. The soft glow from its skin lit the room faintly. He tried giving it warm milk from a bottle he had left from his sister's last visit. The baby cried at first, but then drank slowly, eyes never. Leaving his face, Daniel felt something stir inside him, a strange bond he could not explain. It was not just pity. This was different, deeper, almost protective. As the night grew colder, Daniel wrapped the baby in blankets. He sat by the fire, staring at the small life in his arms. Questions filled his mind. Where did this baby come from? Why was it in the river? Who would be searching for it? And yet, behind those questions, one thought burned brighter than all. He could not let anyone hurt this child, not now, not ever. The baby yawned softly, closing its glowing eyes as it rested against him. Daniel leaned back in his chair, exhausted. But just as his own eyes began to close, the wind outside shifted. The sound of branches breaking echoed from the trees beyond his cabin. He stiffened, holding the baby tighter. He knew he was not alone anymore. Outside, two tall shadows moved, silently toward his door, their steps light but their presence heavy. The night was about to change forever. The baby slept quietly in Daniel's arms, its faint glow casting soft light across the wooden walls of the cabin. Daniel had tried to rest, but his mind refused to calm. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the wind made him sit up straighter. He kept glancing at the door, feeling something heavy in the air. He knew he had been followed, he just did not know by whom. Then it came. A sharp knock, 3 times, firm and unhurried. Not the knock of a neighbor, not the knock of someone seeking help. It was the knock of someone who already knew what waited inside. Daniel's chest tightened, his hand instinctively pulling the baby closer. The glow brightened slightly, as though the child also felt the danger. For a long moment, Daniel did not move. He thought about pretending the cabin was empty, but he knew it would not matter. Whoever was outside already sensed the baby was here. Another knock came, louder this time, shaking the wooden frame of the door. Daniel stood slowly, his boots scraping the floor. He carried the baby to the corner of the room, laying it gently in a basket filled with blankets. "Stay quiet," he whispered, though he knew the child could not understand. The knock came a third time, followed by a voice. "Open, human. We know you have it." The words were sharp, carrying an accent, unlike any Daniel had ever heard. It was not shouted, but it was filled with command, the kind that forced the heart to beat faster. Daniel hesitated only a second longer before stepping to the door. His hand rested on the old iron handle. With one deep breath, he pulled it open. Two figures stood in the pale moonlight. Tall, elegant, but fierce. They were women, though their features were not fully human. Their skin shimmered faintly like the child's. One silver blue, the other with streaks of deep violet. Their eyes glowed softly in the darkness, wide and piercing. Both wore long cloaks that brushed the dirt floor, and their voices carried the weight of power. The taller one stepped forward, her gaze hard. "You," she said coldly, "why do you hold our child?" Daniel gripped the door tighter, forcing his voice steady. "I found the baby in the river. It was drowning. I pulled it out. That is all." The two women exchanged a quick glance, one of worry, one of doubt. "You expect us to believe this?" the violet-skinned woman whispered, her tone more sorrowful than angry. "Do you know what you carry, human? Do you even understand?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "I don't care what it is. I only know it is a baby, and I couldn't let it die." The taller woman's expression shifted slightly, but her eyes remained sharp. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You should not have touched it. The child is marked, and now you are too." Daniel felt his skin crawl at her words, but he stood his ground. "If you want to hurt this baby, you'll go through me first," he said firmly. The two women looked at him, surprised at his defiance. For a moment, silence filled the night, broken only by the crackle of the fire behind him. Then the violet-skinned woman sighed, her eyes softening. "We do not wish to hurt the child, human, but others do, and they are already on their way." Her words struck Daniel like a stone. He glanced at the baby in the basket, its glow faint but steady. He turned back to the women, his voice rough. "Then tell me the truth. Who is this baby? Why was it left in the river?" The taller woman's face darkened. She took a step closer until her eyes were level with his. "That child is not just a baby. It carries the blood of a house that many want destroyed." Daniel's stomach twisted. Royalty, war, secrets, none of it mattered to him. But the baby's soft breathing from the corner reminded him why he had acted. He had saved it because it was helpless, not because of what it represented. Still, the weight of their words pressed down on him. He was now tangled in something much bigger than himself. The wind outside shifted, and with it came a distant hum. Not natural, not the sound of insects or animals. This was the hum of machines, the march of footsteps. Daniel's eyes narrowed. The taller woman turned sharply, toward the trees. "They are here," she hissed, her hand reaching for a blade hidden beneath her cloak. The violet one pressed her palm against the doorframe, her voice trembling. "Human, if you want to live, you must choose now. Protect the child, or hand it over." Daniel's fists clenched, his heart pounding like a drum. He looked once more at the baby who had opened its glowing eyes, staring at him as if waiting for his answer. And in that gaze, Daniel felt something impossible, a silent plea that cut straight into his soul. The night outside exploded with shouts and lights. Figures moved in the trees, armored, armed, hunting. Daniel grabbed the basket with the baby, his choice already made. He turned back to the alien women, his voice steady and fierce. "Then you'd better help me, because I'm not letting anyone take this child." The taller woman's lips curved into the faintest smile. Then you are either very brave, human, or very foolish. The Violet, one whispered softly, her voice filled with both fear and hope. May the stars forgive us all. The cabin shook as the noise outside grew louder. Daniel held the baby close, its glow flickering against his chest. The two alien women moved quickly, closing the door and sliding the wooden bar across. The taller one pulled down the shutters, while the violet-skinned woman touched the baby's forehead. Checking if it was safe, Daniel's heart was pounding, his mind screaming for answers. He turned sharply to them, his voice low but filled with fire. Enough secrets. I saved this child. I deserve to know what I'm protecting. The taller woman paused, her glowing eyes narrowing. For a moment it looked like she would refuse, but then the violet-skinned woman placed a gentle hand on her arm. He has the right, she whispered softly. And we don't have time for lies, the taller woman exhaled slowly, her sharpness easing just a little. She stepped closer to Daniel, her cloak brushing the wooden floor, her voice lowered, heavy with weight. This child is not ordinary human. It is heir to a royal bloodline, the last of its kind, the one many fear. Daniel frowned, his grip tightening on the baby. Heir, he repeated. Royal bloodline. What does that even mean? The violet-skinned woman knelt beside him, her eyes filled with both sorrow and hope. Our world is broken by war, kingdoms fighting for control, blood spilled for power, families destroyed, she explained slowly. This child is the only living descendant of the House of Leora, a family that once kept the peace. Daniel blinked, the words heavy. You're telling me this baby is some kind of prince or princess? Yes, she whispered. And if the hunters outside succeed, the last hope of peace dies tonight. Daniel looked down at the baby, who stared back at him with glowing eyes far too knowing for its age. His chest tightened. He had thought he was saving just a helpless child, but now it seemed he was holding the future of an entire world. Still, his voice came out steady. Then why was it in the river, alone, dying? The taller woman's face darkened, her jaw clenching. Because betrayal runs deep, even in the palace walls. Someone tried to kill it. Someone we trusted. Daniel felt cold all over. The idea of a baby being hunted, betrayed by its own people, made his stomach twist. He looked at the women with suspicion. And what about you two? Why should I trust you? The taller woman's eyes flashed, but the violet one spoke first, her voice soft. Because we are its guardians, sworn to protect it. We chased those who took the child, but we were too late. We found only the river. Her voice cracked, and for the first time Daniel saw real grief in her eyes. The taller woman stepped closer, her hand resting on the hilt of her hidden blade. We do not ask for your trust, human, but we will defend that child with our lives. Daniel studied them both, the firelight flickering across their alien features. He wanted to believe them, but a small voice inside warned him not to. Still, he could not ignore the way the baby quieted when they were near, or the way its glow brightened in their presence. Outside, the noise grew sharper, the sound of armored boots moving through the trees. Daniel looked back at the door, his mind racing. If this baby is so important, why come to me? Why not take it back to your palace, your people? The taller woman's voice was hard. Because our world has no safe place left. Every throne is broken, every ally a possible traitor, the violet one added. And now that you've touched the child, it has bonded to you. Daniel froze, staring at her. Bonded, he repeated. What do you mean bonded? The violet woman looked at him with steady eyes. The child recognizes your soul, it trusts you, it will not be taken from you easily, not even by us. Daniel's stomach flipped. He looked down at the baby in his arms, who cooed softly, its tiny hand clutching his shirt. A strange warmth spread through him, frightening but also powerful. He whispered, What have I gotten myself into? The taller woman's head snapped toward the window, her sharp senses catching movement. They're coming, she said firmly, pulling out her blade. Through the cracks in the shutter, Daniel saw shadows moving, armored figures spreading out across the clearing. The violet-skinned woman turned back to Daniel, her voice trembling with urgency. You asked for the truth, now here it is. Those outside are not just soldiers, they are assassins, sworn to kill this child before its power awakens. If they take it, everything ends. Daniel's throat went dry, his chest heavy with the weight of their words. He had been an ordinary man just hours ago, and now he was standing in the middle of a war he didn't understand, holding the only life that could change it. He looked at the women, their faces filled with desperation, but it was the baby's eyes that anchored him. It blinked at him, calm despite the chaos, as if waiting for him to decide. And somehow Daniel knew the choice was his alone. The first crash came. Soldiers slamming against the door, wood splintering. The taller woman raised her blade, ready to fight. The violet. One spread her hands. Light gathering between her fingers, Daniel pulled the baby close to his chest, his voice a rough whisper. "All right then, I'll protect you no matter what." The door cracked, the sound of breaking wood filling the cabin. Shouts echoed outside, firelight flashing through the window. The baby let out a soft cry, its glow pulsing stronger, as though power inside it was waking. Daniel held it tighter, his heart steady even as the world threatened to fall apart. And then, with one final crash, the door burst open, and the hunters poured in. The cabin exploded with noise as the hunters broke through the door. Wood splinters flew across the room and armored figures stormed inside, their weapons glinting under the firelight. Daniel stepped back quickly, clutching the baby. Close to his chest, the taller alien woman leapt forward, her blade flashing as it cut through the first attacker. The violet-skinned woman raised her hands, a wave of shimmering light bursting from her palms, throwing two soldiers against the wall. The baby cried, loudly, its glow growing stronger with every passing second. Daniel tried to shield it with his coat, but the glow spilled out like a beacon, impossible to hide. The hunters roared in unison, their voices sharp and cold. "Take the child," they shouted. "Kill the human." Daniel's heart pounded in his chest, fear clawing at him, but he forced himself to move. He ducked under. A soldier's strike, stumbling toward the back door of the cabin. The violet woman's voice rang out over the chaos. "Run, human, take the child, we will cover you." Daniel hesitated, but the taller woman turned her head just enough to shout, "Go now, if they catch you here, the child is lost." Daniel swallowed hard, then sprinted through the back door. The baby pressed tightly against his chest. The cold night air hit him like a wall, the forest stretching wide and dark before him. Behind him, the cabin shook with battle, the sound of blades clashing, wood breaking, and strange blasts of energy. Daniel didn't look back. He ran, his boots pounding the dirt, branches whipping against his face. The baby whimpered softly, but did not cry, its small hands gripping him as if it trusted him fully. Daniel's breath came in ragged gasps. His legs burning, every instinct told him the hunters were right behind him. And soon he heard them, heavy footsteps, metal clanking, voices shouting commands. He veered off the path, plunging deeper into the forest where the trees grew thicker. The moonlight barely broke through the canopy, leaving the woods in shifting shadows. Daniel's mind screamed that he was just one man with no weapon, no training, nothing but the will to keep running. Still, he kept moving, each step driven by the weight of the child in his arms. Leaves crunched, twigs snapped, the enemy was closing in. Suddenly, a hand caught his shoulder, pulling him back. Daniel spun around, raising his elbow to strike, but it was the violet-skinned woman. Her face was pale with exhaustion, but her eyes glowed with determination. "Come this way," she whispered urgently, pulling him through a narrow gap between two rocks. Behind them, the taller woman appeared, blood streaking her blade, her cloak torn. "They will not stop, human," she growled. "You must keep the child hidden." Daniel wanted to shout, to demand why they were forcing this on him. But there was no time. The hunters' lights cut through the trees, beams of red sweeping the forest floor. The three of them ran together, their footsteps muffled by the thick moss. The baby's glow pulsed gently, almost as if it guided them where to go. Daniel noticed the taller woman following its faint rhythm, turning sharply whenever the glow brightened. It was leading them deeper into the wilderness. The shouts grew louder, closer. Daniel tripped on a root, nearly falling, but the violet woman caught him before he hit the ground. "Careful," she hissed, her voice trembling. The child cannot fall. Daniel nodded, sweat dripping down his face, his lungs burning. His body screamed to stop, but he pushed forward, because stopping meant death. They reached a clearing where the moonlight spilled bright across the ground. For a moment Daniel felt relief, but then a sudden sound froze his blood. Hounds, mechanical beasts. Their eyes glowing red as they bounded into the clearing, metal jaws snapping. The hunters had unleashed their trackers. Daniel staggered back, clutching the baby tighter. The taller woman raised her blade once more, her voice sharp. "Stay. Behind us, human, and do not let go of the child." The hounds leapt, claws tearing at the earth. The violet woman sent a blast of light that struck one mid-air, its body crashing against a tree in sparks. The taller woman sliced through another, the sound of screeching metal filling the night. Daniel stood frozen, his arms locked around the baby, who now glowed brighter than ever. The hounds turned their attention to him, drawn to the light. One lunged straight at him, its jaws wide. In that instant, the baby let out a sharp cry. A shockwave of glowing energy burst out, slamming the hound back as though hit by invisible hands. Daniel stumbled, wide-eyed. The women gasped, their faces filled with awe and fear. The taller one muttered under her breath, "It has begun. The child's power is awakening." The hunters' voices grew louder, shouts echoing through the forest. Daniel's heart raced. If the baby could do this, then the hunters would stop at nothing. The violet woman grabbed his arm, pulling him toward a narrow trail. "We must move now before they surround us." Daniel nodded, still shaken by what he had seen. He held the baby closer, whispering softly, "Whatever you are, I'll keep you safe." They plunged into the trail, trees closing behind them like shadows, swallowing light. The hunters' shouts and hounds followed, relentless. The forest itself seemed to close in, pressing tighter around them. Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The real chase had just started. The forest seemed endless, the trees stretching like walls of shadow around them. Daniel's legs felt heavy, his breath ragged, but he refused to stop. The baby was warm against his chest, glowing faintly, as if giving him strength to keep going. Every time his body screamed to rest, he looked down at the child's small face and pushed forward again. Behind him, the two alien women moved with practiced speed. The taller one carried her blade, her sharp eyes scanning the trees for danger. The violet-skinned woman stayed closer to Daniel, her hands ready to summon bursts of light. They said nothing, but the tension between them was thick. Each step through the forest was a reminder that the hunters were still close, and the chase was not over. Finally, they reached a narrow cave. Hidden beneath a ridge of stone, the taller woman motioned them inside, her voice low but firm. "We rest here only for a moment." Daniel stepped into the darkness, his boots crunching against loose stones. The cave smelled of damp earth, but it was shelter, and for now that was enough. He sat down against the wall, cradling the baby in his arms. The glow dimmed as the child drifted into sleep. Daniel's chest rose and fell, exhaustion catching up with him. The violet woman knelt beside him, studying his face. "You are not like others of your kind," she whispered, her voice almost kind. Daniel frowned. "Others of my kind, what do you mean?" The taller woman answered sharply. "Humans are known in whispers across the stars, strong but selfish, curious but dangerous. Most would have left the child to drown." Daniel shook his head, his voice steady. "Maybe some would, but I couldn't. It's just a baby." The violet woman's eyes softened. "And yet it clings to you more than to us, its guardians." Daniel looked down, realizing the truth in her words. Even now, the baby's tiny hand gripped his shirt tightly, refusing to let go. A strange warmth filled his chest. Not just duty, but something deeper. He whispered, almost to himself, "I don't know why, but it feels like it trusts me." The taller woman gave him a sharp glance but said nothing. Instead, she stood near the cave entrance, watching the forest beyond. The violet woman leaned closer, her voice low. "There is something you must understand, human. The bond has begun." Daniel frowned. "Bond?" She nodded, her eyes glowing faintly. The child has chosen you, its soul tied to yours. It will only find peace in your arms. That is why its glow grows brighter with you, why its power awoke. When you were in danger, Daniel's stomach twisted, the weight of her words heavy. I never asked for this, he muttered, shaking his head. But you accepted it the moment you reached into the river. She replied gently. The bond cannot be broken, and now you are part of the child's fate, whether you wish it or not. The baby stirred, letting out a small cry. Daniel rocked it gently, whispering, Shh, you're safe. I've got you. And to his surprise, the baby calmed instantly, its glow softening like a heartbeat against his chest. The violet woman smiled faintly, almost sadly. You see, it has chosen. For the first time, Daniel felt the truth of it. Not just pity, not just chance, but something deeper pulling him toward this child. It frightened him, but it also filled him with a strange courage. He was no soldier, no hero, just an ordinary man. Yet when he looked at the baby, he knew he would fight anyone, even an army, to keep it safe. The taller woman returned, her voice cold but urgent. They are still searching, their hounds are close, we cannot stay long. Daniel stood, tightening his coat around the baby. Then where do we go? The violet woman glanced at the child, then back at him. There is an old sanctuary in the mountains, hidden from their machines. If we reach it, the child will be safe, at least for a time. Daniel nodded, though doubt burned in his chest. Safe for a time was not enough, but it was better than nothing. He adjusted his hold on the baby, and once again they stepped into the night. The forest seemed darker now, the trees whispering as the wind carried strange sounds. The baby pressed, its head against Daniel's chest, its glow dim but steady. Each step forward deepened the bond. Daniel no longer thought of the child as the alien baby, but simply as someone he had to protect. The hunters' voices carried faintly in the distance, closer now. Daniel's stomach knotted, his grip tightening. The violet woman walked beside him, her voice calm. Do not be afraid. The bond will guide you. When you falter, it will give you strength. Daniel gave a small, bitter laugh. I hope you're right, because I've never been more afraid in my life. The taller woman hissed softly, raising a hand. Through the trees ahead, red lights moved, sweeping across the forest. The hunters had spread out, forming a net to trap them. Daniel's chest tightened, his heart hammering. They had no choice but to move silently, quickly, hoping the shadows would hide them. But the baby stirred again, its glow flickering brighter. Daniel whispered desperately, Please, not now, little one. Yet the glow grew, pulsing with every beat of its tiny heart. The taller woman turned sharply, her voice low and tense. They will see us. Its power is calling them. The forest lit with sudden beams of red light, hunters turning. Toward them, shouts ringing out. Daniel's blood went cold. The chase had begun again, and this time there was no place left to hide. The forest burned with red light as the hunters spread closer. Daniel held the baby tight against his chest, running through the trees as fast as his legs allowed. The two alien women moved like shadows beside him, their cloaks flashing in the moonlight, their eyes fixed on the path ahead. The baby's glow grew brighter with every step, guiding them and betraying them at the same time. Finally, they stumbled upon an abandoned outpost hidden deep within the forest. Old walls of stone stood broken, half covered in vines, a roofless shelter, a place forgotten by both time and war. The taller woman raised her hand, signaling for silence. This will do, she whispered, her voice sharp. We rest here before moving again. Daniel leaned against the cold wall, his chest heaving. The baby rested against him, its glow soft, its tiny eyes half closed in exhaustion. For a moment, he thought they were safe. The violet-skinned woman sat beside him, her hands trembling as she tried to summon light for warmth. But the taller woman stood at the entrance, watching the trees with narrowed eyes. Daniel's suspicion grew with the silence. His voice was low but heavy with demand. Tell me the truth, are we really running to protect the baby? Or are you dragging me into something bigger than I can handle? The violet woman's lips parted as if to speak, But the taller one cut her off. Do not question what you cannot understand, human. Just hold the child and do as you are told. Daniel's jaw tightened, anger rising. I didn't ask for this, but I won't be your puppet. If I'm carrying this baby, I need the truth. The violet woman looked at him with sorrow in her glowing eyes. You already know the truth, Daniel. This child is the last hope of our people. It must live even if we die. Before Daniel could reply, a sharp sound echoed through the night. A whistle, too clean, too sharp to be natural. The taller woman froze, her hand tightening on her blade. Her eyes scanned the forest, then turned toward the violet one, suspicion burning. You, she hissed, her voice like steel. What have you done? Daniel's stomach dropped. The violet woman's hands shook, her face pale. I had no choice, she whispered, her voice breaking. They promised they would spare us if I told them where we were. The taller woman's fury erupted, her voice a thunderous growl. You betrayed us. You doomed the child. Daniel staggered back, shock flooding through him. The baby stirred in his arms, glowing brighter as if sensing danger. The violet woman's tears fell, her voice trembling. I couldn't watch us all die. I thought they would only take the child and leave the rest of us. The taller woman raised her blade, rage in her eyes. You fool. They will kill us all. And the child first. Daniel stepped between them, his voice sharp. Stop. Both of you fighting each other won't save anyone. But even as he spoke, the sound of footsteps filled the clearing. The hunters had arrived, their armor gleaming, their weapons raised. Red beams of light cut through the outpost walls, sweeping. Across the broken stones, Daniel held the baby closer, his breath ragged. The taller woman stood ready with her blade, her fury now aimed at the enemies surrounding them. The violet woman collapsed to her knees, guilt weighing her down. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears falling fast. I didn't mean for it to end like this. The hunters moved closer, their leader stepping into the clearing, a tall figure in black armor, his voice cold. Hand over the child, human, and we may let you die quickly. Daniel's grip tightened, his chest burning with fear and defiance. He shook his head, his voice trembling but strong. You'll have to go through me first. The leader raised his hand, and the soldiers aimed their weapons. The taller woman leapt forward, her blade slashing, her movements fast and deadly. But there were too many, the outpost walls lit with the sparks of battle. The violet woman raised her hands, light spilling, out. But her strength faltered with every wave. She had betrayed them, but she still tried to fight, her guilt driving her. Daniel ducked behind a wall, shielding the baby, as blasts of energy shook the stones. The child cried loudly, its glow pulsing, brighter and brighter. And then, with a sound like thunder, a wave of power burst outward. The ground shook, the walls cracked, the hunters stumbled back. Daniel fell to his knees, clutching the baby, his eyes wide. The child's power had awakened again, stronger than before. The hunters shouted in alarm, but regrouped quickly. Contain it, their leader roared, before it destroys everything. The taller woman fought like a storm, cutting through soldiers, her cloak torn and blood streaking her face. The violet woman screamed as she pushed out one last burst of light. Collapsing in exhaustion, Daniel stood in the middle of it all, the baby glowing in his arms like a star ready to explode. He looked at the taller woman, his voice raw. What do we do? Her eyes burned with both fury and determination. We run, human. We run with everything we have, because if they take the child tonight, the galaxy is lost. The baby's glow spread across the ruins, brighter and brighter. Daniel's heart pounded, his legs shaking. He knew there was no turning back, no safe road left. The bond had pulled him too deep, and now the entire world wanted what he held. The hunters closed in, their shadows pressing against the light. The taller woman shouted over the chaos, her voice fierce. Run, Daniel, run, and don't stop until the stars burn. The night burned with fire and light as the hunters closed in. The ruined outpost shook with every blast, stones falling around them. Daniel's arms ached as he clutched the glowing baby tight. but he refused to let go. The taller alien woman stood beside him, her blade dripping with blood and sparks, her eyes fierce and unyielding. The violet woman, weak and trembling, leaned against the wall, shame and sorrow written across her face. The hunters spread in a circle, their weapons raised. Their leader, stepping forward. "Human," he called, his voice deep and sharp. "Give us the child, and you may live. Refuse, and you will burn with it." Daniel's chest tightened, his heart pounding like a drum. He looked down at the baby, its eyes wide and glowing, calm in the middle of chaos. Something in that tiny gaze anchored him. He shook his head slowly, his voice firm. "No, you'll never take this child." The leader raised his hand and the soldiers moved in. The taller woman roared, swinging her blade, cutting down the first that stepped forward. The violet woman lifted her hands, weak but still glowing, trying to shield them with a faint barrier of light. Daniel crouched low, protecting the baby with his body, every muscle screaming for strength. The hunters fired, blasts of red energy slamming against the barrier. The violet woman cried out, her body shaking under the force. The barrier cracked, light flickering. "Daniel," she gasped, her voice breaking. "The child, its power. Only you can awaken it fully." Daniel's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" She coughed, her body trembling. "The bond, it chose you. The power will answer only to you. Trust it. Trust the child." Another blast shook the ruins. The barrier shattered and the taller woman leapt into the fray, her blade flashing. But there were too many and her movements slowed, her body wounded and tired. Daniel's heart raced, fear threatening to consume him. He looked at the baby, its tiny hands reaching for him, glowing brighter with every cry. He closed his eyes, whispering desperately, "If you need me, if you trust me, then I'm here. Show me what to do." A warmth spread through him, deep and strong. It was not just the glow of the child. It was something inside him, a connection that went beyond flesh, beyond blood. The baby's eyes locked onto his, and in that instant, Daniel felt it. The bond, pure and unbreakable. He stood tall, lifting the child high as its glow turned into a blazing light that filled the ruins. The hunters shielded their eyes, shouting in panic, "What is this?" Their leader roared, "Stop it, stop them!" But it was too late. The baby's power burst outward, a wave of pure energy shaking the earth. The hunters were thrown back like leaves in a storm, their weapons shattering, their machines sparking and dying. The ruins cracked, the trees bent under the force, the sky itself seemed to ripple. Daniel stood at the center of it, the child in his arms, his body glowing with the same light. He did not feel fear anymore, only strength, only purpose. When the light faded, silence fell. The hunters lay scattered, some fleeing into the forest, others broken and unmoving. The leader staggered to his feet, his armor cracked, his voice filled with rage. "This is not over, human. You have doomed yourself. The galaxy will come for you both." He vanished into the shadows, leaving the night heavy with his threat. Daniel sank to his knees, exhaustion crashing into him. The baby cooed softly, its glow dimming as it rested in his arms. The taller woman approached, her blade lowered, her eyes wide with awe. You wielded its power," she said quietly. "No guardian has ever done this before." Daniel shook his head, his voice low. "I didn't wield it, I just trusted it, and it trusted me." The violet woman, weak but alive, whispered through tears. "Then the bond is real, stronger than anything we imagined. The child has chosen you not just as protector, but as family." Daniel looked down at the baby, a strange peace filling his heart. He whispered softly, "Then I'll be whatever it needs me to be." The night grew still, only the sound of the wind moving through the broken ruins. The taller woman sheathed her blade, her voice steady. "Human, the galaxy will hunt you now, kings and assassins. Armies and traitors all will come for the child. Are you ready for that burden?" Daniel stood slowly, the baby held close, his voice calm but firm. "I didn't ask for it, But I won't run from it either. If the galaxy wants a fight, they'll have to face me first. The violet woman bowed her head, her eyes filled with tears. Then perhaps hope has not died after all, she whispered. The taller woman gave a small nod, the first sign of respect. In her sharp eyes, you may be human, but tonight, you became something more. Daniel stepped out of the ruins, the dawn breaking through the trees. The baby stirred in his arms, its glow soft and warm. For the first time, Daniel did not feel lost, he felt chosen. The road ahead was dangerous, but he knew one thing with certainty. He would protect this child no matter what it cost him, no matter who stood in his way. And as the sun rose, painting the sky in fire, a new legend began. The story of a human and an alien child whose bond would shake the stars.